on, guys? Welcome back to the Anti-Oki Podcast, where we call out nonsense in the gaming industry and beyond. I am MisterBehavior. He is Ceelows. What is going on, man?
How we doing, fellas? We got some more dumb shit to report.
Well, that's what this is, right? This is a podcast about calling out dumb shit. So, of course, you guys are tuning in to check out more of the dumb shit. Well, how are you doing, man? Before we get into that, like, what's going on here? You're doing some IRL streaming and all that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah, I've been getting into this IRL streaming space. It's really interesting because it is the one thing that it has a crazy amount of demand, but not a lot of supply.
Yeah.
And because me and my buddy, we've been talking about it because he really got me into it. It's one of those things because we always talk about like people being socially awkward and stuff on this podcast, and video games kind of like contributing to that.
Yeah,
this is really interesting. We have a little theory that the IRL streaming space will remain this way, where there's a really high demand but not enough supply. I don't see this trend going anywhere anytime. I don't even think it's really a trend yet. I think people are really caught on. Like, just chatting is taking over Twitch.
Yeah, for
just
sure.
chatting is taking over like the internet in general.
Yeah.
Even on YouTube. It's been a thing for YouTube, but it's always been video format. Now it's live, right?
Yeah.
Like Instagram and Facebook are doing it. So the thing with this kind of just chatting is, if you go to the just chatting category, you see the standard, like, big boobs in the hot tub.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
Really just like attractive women in front of a computer screen. You don't really see people going outdoors doing things, because this stuff is not trivial to get into. It's pretty, you have to like really know what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And it takes a while to set up. It's hard to troubleshoot, but when you get it working, it's really crazy. There's a really high demand for it, because we talked about like parasocial relationships with people on the internet. And the thing with IRL is people really want that. That's why people watch streams. They
right.
Next to the streamer. Now they can do that while the person goes outside. It's like someone's going outside and being social for them.
Yeah,
I think that's like kind of like the demand of it. But the supply of it, as in people doing it, it's not trivial to set up, right? But the thing is, like, I don't think that's the real reason why it will stay this way. I think the real reason is because you have to be extroverted to some extent.
Yeah, right.
And introvertedness is only on the rise. Extrovertedness is only on a decline over the like.
Yeah, of course.
So like, I don't see this trend really going anywhere. Like, I don't see
So you were saying like that it's related to socially awkwardness of people. So people don't want to go out and be social, so they're tuning in to like somebody who is going out being social, so that they can sort of live vicariously through that person.
Because that what it is right there with them.
That's so interesting.
Like, the way I have it set up is like, because I'm really doing like a lot of biking stuff with stuff in between, but that's like the main thing I'm trying to do. And like, I have like the chat right there on the handlebars. So like, and you can see through the camera, so it's like they're with me the whole time. And it's like this very parasocial. Like, I'll give an example, man. It's like, I did one successful stream so far. My numbers were pretty parallel to my Street Fighter numbers.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Like,
wow.
Because anybody can relate. You can literally show anybody an IRL stream. Anybody can watch it.
Yeah.
You don't have to know anything about any of this. You could just hang out. You don't have to know about a game or anything. There's crazy potential here.
Weird, man. So that's wild. Yeah, people are just trying to live vicariously through the streamer. So now you can go out, get your socials in. You know what would be cool doing that is doing some pickups, going to bars and like chat.
There's people doing that, and it gets crazy numbers.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, dude.
Oh man. Yeah, if I was single, I would get back into that stuff. So what do we got going on? We got a couple of things to talk about here today. Yeah. We got some stuff coming out of Final Fantasy VII's co-director, I should say, Motomo Toriyama, and his take on what's going on in the video game industry specifically. He talks about a little bit of The Last of Us 2, so that's interesting. And it's probably not what people are going to think is coming out of this guy's mouth. But if you play Final Fantasy VII Remake, you might probably figure that's where it's going. And then we got some stuff coming out of Microsoft, Double Fine, aka Microsoft, since Double Fine was bought by Microsoft back in 2019. And that is related to the Psychonauts 2 Invincibility mode. Now, if you've seen my channel, I've talked about this quite a bit. I actually just put out a video updating on this. So we'll talk about more, go more in depth into that. So let's start with this Final Fantasy thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna share screen here.
Let's do it.
Can you see this?
Yeah. Yep.
So check it out. So I read through this, but basically Matomu Toriyama was praising The Last of Us 2 for diversity and inclusiveness. And the reason I wanted to talk to you about this was because this is coming out of a Japanese studio. And we all know, like, all of this, wokeness, diversity, all this kind of inclusion. They call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. So DIE.
Yeah.
It's the acronym.
They made an acronym for it, man.
That's the acronym: diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's DIE. It's which is amazing, actually, because it's like almost self-admittedly stupid, right?
Yeah. Like, we have to make this sound like it makes sense.
Yeah, right.
And unironically sound really dumb. That's crazy.
But
man.
it's just like critical race at practice. Crap. You know what I'm saying? Critical race at practice. Anyway, so Matomu Toriyama, this article down here, it says Matomu Toriyama praised The Last of Us Part 2 for diversity and inclusiveness. The acclaimed creator noted how Last of Us 2 went to great lengths to ensure its accessibility and inclusivity in a seamless way and champion it. And this actually sort of dovetails into our next topic too. So we'll go back to the accessibility part as well. And it goes on to say, let's see. Last of Us 2 features a diverse cast of characters embracing different races, sexualities, and gender identities. I can't stand this shit. I can't even read this without having without laughing. This is just stupid. Giving visibility to underrepresented groups. The Last of Us 2 includes a transgender character, like whatever. Does it really have a transgender character in it? Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Wait. Can we read that again for a sec?
It says The Last of Us 2 includes a transgender character, Lev, who deals with some of the strongest transgender people.
Oh, that's right. They do have. Yeah, she's like bald or something, and she's like in some tribe, I think. It's very strange because here's like I was really looking forward to this game.
Yeah.
I love
the first one. Yeah,
one of my favorite games of all time. So when I saw that they did this, it took me like I saw the villain. And I was like, I cannot play this game.
Yeah.
What is this brolic woman? Like, why? Like, it because The Last of Us is supposed to like kind of emulate what a story would look like in this kind of scenario,
right?
While also creating awesome characters,
right?
Then part 2 was like, we're gonna have to input this. We're gonna have to insert this kind of looking character to represent a certain group.
Yeah.
And then it took me out of it. Like, it wasn't even because a lot of people complain about the plot and whatnot.
Yeah,
like, the plot is stupid. The plot is stupid. But for me, it's like these kinds of story-driven games are supposed to immerse you into the characters and the story. That kind of character, I can't. It takes me out of it. It doesn't look real. It's like, and that's what the first one was so kind of keen on.
Right.
Well,
my issue with it is that this is a post-apocalyptic future, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the first game is like there's like the spores or whatever, and they create like really, and I really like that first game. They create these they're sort of zombies, I guess you want to call it, whatever, but it's post-apocalyptic. In reality, no one would be dealing with this kind of stuff in that sort of scenario. This kind of thing where you're able to like question gender norms and question, what your gender identity and all that. This only happens in a prosperous situation where people are able to actually question those sort of things. In other scenarios, people are just taking things as given because they're worried about other things. So that's my issue with it, is it just doesn't make any sense in terms of like what they're going through in this world. That's not to say that there's not going to be like, like girls loving girls or whatever. I'm sure that'd happen, right? Because that's sort of like more biological in sense, right? But like, if you're going to say like that, like somebody's that worried about like their gender identity in a situation where they're like, trying to defend themselves against like zombies or whatever. And I didn't play The Last of Us 2, so I don't know where they went with the story, because I just like learned about like what was going on in terms of, like what you just mentioned about Abby and all this kind of stuff. and I was just like turned off by it, and I was like, nah, I'm just gonna leave it. This game doesn't exist for me. Like, I'm just gonna leave it at the first one.
Pretty much what I did.
You know, but to me, like, it just doesn't really make any sense. Like, we've gotten to a point in Western society in particular where people are just bored, right? And they're trying to make up problems. This is a scenario in which people would not be bored. They'd have a lot of problems, okay? So they wouldn't have to worry about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But this article goes on to say that Toriyama expressed how pleased he was with how Naughty Dog handled the cast of Last of Us 2, and noted that he tried to modernize the characters for Final Fantasy VII when remaking the game. Toriyama also praised the game's approach to accessibility. We'll talk about that again later. Yeah. Now, so basically, this goes on to say, did you play Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Dude, that's one of my favorite games.
Okay. So do you remember, did you play the original Final Fantasy VII?
No, I did not.
Okay.
So I played it. I didn't beat it.
Right. Okay. So in the original Final Fantasy VII, there is that spot where you where we have to like do the section where Cloud puts on the dress to fool oh god, I can't remember the guy's name. The Duke. Oh god. What, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I can't remember his name, but so they did that in Final Fantasy VII Remake, but they expanded upon that section. So there's like the whole drag dance section. Apparently that was put in as like a LGBT inclusion thing, which
the director said that.
Yes. So let's see. Can we go down here and see if maybe it's in this?
I thought that article was like just expanding on what was already there.
Right. So that's what I thought too. So, okay, so here we go. Think that expressing diversity with LGBT inclusion is an important issue involved with making any content. Final Fantasy VII Remake, we rebuilt the original game using the latest technology. We felt that it should not stop at the technical side, as we need to update every content being shown with modern sensibilities. So that honeybee in scene is one of those things. Now, to be completely fair, I don't care. I don't hate that scene. I actually think it's actually really fun.
No, I thought it was really well done. It's just I'm worried about the future games now.
Right. Exactly. Like now
that's
I'm
all
like,
I'm worried about. What it was really well done.
Yeah, I'm like, what are we gonna go? Like, obviously, like, you know what I mean? Like that section where it, like he's like, oh, God, I can never remember the names of some of these characters, but he's like doing the dance and like that dude androgynous dude character is like, you know what I mean, clearly gay, you know what I mean, like, and that's fine, whatever, that's not really the point. But my thing is, it's like, at least in Final Fantasy VII, then the remake, to me, when I first played through that, I didn't feel like I was getting beat over the head with an ideological standpoint. No. I think exactly what you said, where I felt like they were just expanding on what was already there. And they were like giving me a different, they did the same thing with the scene where you go into the gym and you have to do like a bunch of those different trials. Like I did all of those with, you do ones with Tifa and you do ones with Cloud. In the original game, there is like the squat challenge that you do, but they expand upon that and they do a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So to me, like that whole section was just fleshed out. It wasn't like me getting smacked in the face, like you need to like this, or like, you know, any of that kind of nonsense. But now that I'm seeing this is coming out of the director's mouth or co-director's mouth, I'm like, okay, well, what are they gonna do for part two? You know what I'm saying? Like,
because I don't think there's any more of that kind of content in the original game, is there?
No, that's kind of it.
So like if you see it and insert it in the next game, you're gonna be like, you know what this is now,
right? Well, so also when you think about it from a context of the fact that it's Japanese, like Japanese people see cross-dressing a lot differently than like Westerners do. It's not really like a gender identity thing. It's like just kind of the thing that happens.
It's kind of just a thing you do, yeah.
Right. And like it's like more like they're like it's been a part of the culture for like a really long time. If you go back to like more like older like animes even or whatever, like you'll always see that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that's why like it was in Final Fantasy VII as like Cloud puts on the dress, and it wasn't weird because it was like that's just like a thing that happens in Japanese media. You know what I'm saying?
Like they're not trying to change reality.
Right. Yeah. It's not like they're not trying to tell me that Cloud is trans.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
He's got a dress on, lol. Like
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally it.
Exactly.
That's fine. That's always
exactly.
Yeah, even in like I think because I just watched a lot of Naruto, and Naruto they do that a lot, like just like Japanese humor. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
right, and
but they ain't trying to say Naruto's a girl.
Right,
so I'm cool. It's fine.
Exactly. So it's a little different, but yeah, I mean, to kind of summarize that, like, I do think that I was sort of worried about this because, like we're saying before, like Japan is supposed to be sort of this or was this sort of kind of bastion of like kind of gatekeeping. They're like not letting a lot of things in. Even, I mean, this is why, like, you know, you got like manga outselling like American comics and all this kind of stuff, because they're not like doing a lot of this like virtue signaling kind of stuff. And even even in Final Fantasy 7, if that like the honeybee scene was like part of like, like maybe we should like do some of this kind of stuff, it wasn't so preachy. It wasn't like the American comic scene right now. I think Marvel just did this. They put out a bunch of like comic books for Pride Month, and they were like transgender characters and all this kind of stuff, and they were like having these weird dialogues about like what it's like to be a transgender person and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you don't see that in like Japanese media. It's like, you know, you'll have a character that's like maybe a dude wearing a dress or whatever, and that's really it. It's not really like it's not a moment, it's not a teaching moment. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't a teaching moment in Final Fantasy 7, whereas I feel like and this is again coming from someone who did not play The Last of Us 2. I've only seen clips of it. I've read through the story and all that kind of stuff. It feels like a lot of it was intended to teach me something, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
but it's funny because like I read through the whole story.
Yeah.
What it teaches you doesn't make sense with the plot, because the plot undermines the message. It's really dumb.
Really?
I don't really want to get into it because I don't want to spoil it. Unless we could do
I don't care. I'm not gonna play it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if anyone wants, spoiler alert, if you haven't played Last of Us 2, I'm gonna like spoil something for you.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, the whole plot of the game is a shitty revenge game. It's a shitty revenge plot.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, Noel dies in the beginning from the trans villain.
Joel.
That's why Joel. Yeah. He died in the beginning from the trans
because he killed the girl's mom or dad, right? The doctor at the end of the first game is supposed
like some
to
random
be
doctor.
The girl's dad. You know what was actually interesting though? Because in the PS3 version, that guy was black. They changed him to white in the PS4 version. Did you ever play it on PS3?
Yeah, I did. I don't really.
The doctor was originally, and he looked black, at least to me.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just like tan or something, but I'm pretty sure he was black, which I remember seeing that and being like, so they changed the character from black, so they whitewashed the character
just so they could kill him and be like, Joel's a bad guy.
Yeah, right. No, but I think I'm pretty sure in the remaster version for PS4, which is the one that I have now, they changed his ethnicity.
Man, I think I see what's going on here. They changed him to white because since this villain is the daughter, it wouldn't make sense if he's black. So like, they didn't originally intend to do that, but because they went full woke,
right, exactly.
They inserted this like.
That's what I think that they did. Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Because the original version, if you go back, I think there's videos of this on YouTube that you can find. And anybody who's watching this, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments.
You can challenge this. This is speculation.
I think that if you go, you can find videos of the original game versus the old game, the new game, the PS4 version, and like that last scene where he goes in to save Ellie and has to kill everybody. The doctor who's supposed to be Abby's dad, her reason for revenge in the second game was black. Anyway, continue your explanation of the story.
Yeah, so basically he dies, and they make it really brutal, right? And the nature of it is not the problem, because they wanted to make this like really like gruesome scene where he's getting the shit kicked in and he gets beaten to death or whatever. It's the fact that it's done by this inserted woke character.
Yeah.
That's why it irritates me, because it could have been well done. And it doesn't even make sense with the plot, because Joel's always been this really intelligent survivor that is able to like, he's always like 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody else. he just lets in these people he doesn't even know into like his home, and then they just kill him.
Yeah, right. That's what I.
How did you not see this coming when you're like the best survivor, one of the best survivors like in this universe? It's like, what? Like that didn't make sense. And then, so then you play as Ellie trying to get like to kill her, right? For like the first half of the game, and then when you get to that point, then you pretty much replay the first half of the game as the villain, which nobody asked for.
Right.
And then when you get to the end of the game, Ellie doesn't even kill her.
Yeah, right.
Ellie's like, oh, I feel bad, but she's killed people the whole game.
Yeah, right.
Like, so it's like murder is bad, revenge is bad, so I don't do it, but you kill everybody else.
You know what? That's kind of a theme.
It's so dumb, dude.
Because that's what I've heard is that she gets to Abby and then she like lets her go or something, basically. Right.
It's like a forgiveness thing, but it like it's not that forgiveness is not like it's not that like an idea it's bad. It's it doesn't make sense in the plot because she killed everybody else.
So she killed her father figure. Like, you know what I mean? Like that would make that makes no sense.
It doesn't.
I agree. It's like so this is what I've heard about the new Black Widow movie is they do something similar where like the main one of the female characters who like was, I don't know exactly what the plot was because I didn't watch it, but I heard that one of the main characters did something really terrible, one of the main villains, and then like just basically gets away with it at the end. Like they don't do anything to her. She like all of a sudden is a good guy and everybody's like okay with it. So it's like this is a similar thing where they just like they create this villain, they make you play it, they create a villain who kills one of like the greatest characters of the franchise, the greatest character in the franchise, in my opinion, like the main character, kills the main character, which also now we're talking about Last of Us 2, but also from what I saw from the trailers, they kind of made it seem like Joel was in the game more. And what happens, from what I understand, is like what you said. He gets killed in a way that doesn't make sense because he lets strangers into the house, which he wouldn't do because if you had ever played the first game, like, no, he wouldn't do that. But then you have to play as the main character's killer. Like, it's a total FU to the fans of the first game. And then there's no payoff. The villain doesn't even get killed. The villain doesn't even die. So it's like, I don't even know what they were trying to do there. But
they don't give you a reason to question anything because they force the way they streamline the narrative. Like as you play through, if you like you play through the same sections a lot of the game with Ellie and the villain, and with Ellie you're always doing something really gruesome. With the main villain you're always doing something really like nicer. They kind of like spoon feed it like Ellie's bad and this villain's actually good. Like
that's so weird.
Like Ellie kills a dog, you don't have a choice, you have to kill the dog, and then I don't know if it's in the same scene, but in the same kind of context, the villain is really nice to the dog. They do shit like that throughout the whole narrative to try to make you feel like some kind of empathy for the villain, but you don't because it's forced. Like you don't really. Yeah.
The problem with that is that in the first game, the reason why Joel kills her dad is because he's about to like sacrifice Ellie, basically.
Yeah.
To like try to save everybody else, and he decides no, like he's not going to do that because he's already lost one daughter. He loses his first daughter, his real daughter, in the beginning of the game, and he like gets attached to Ellie and decides no, he's going to save her. The reason why we love Joel is because he did shit like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like, so it's so weird that they would try to humanize the villain who killed the main character to save the other main character who killed the main characters. He killed the main character. Let me start over. Joel killed the villain's father.
Yeah.
To save the other main character of the franchise. So in the second game, the villain, who I'm going to perceive and I'm going to keep saying Abby is the villain because she kills Joel, the main character of the franchise. And then Ellie, who was saved, whose life was saved by Joel, doesn't even kill the killers of Joel. That doesn't make sense. It just bothers me. So these are the things that I knew about the game, and this is why I didn't play, because I was like, I'm not gonna I'm not going to do this.
The plot undermines the message. It's stupid.
Right. And I'm sure that by a game, in terms of a game standpoint, it's great. I'm sure mechanically it's fantastic. But like, that's not enough for me to play through that. So anyway, to go all the way around there, if Final Fantasy VII's director is inspired by that, then we have a problem for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2.
It sucks because I love that game.
Oh yeah, Remake was amazing. Yeah, it was awesome. I beat it so fast too because I was just really enthralled.
Like I haven't played a narrative-driven game like that where I play it, I'm done for the day, and like I kind of leave it where I left off, and the next day I'm like thinking I want to get back to it to continue.
Yeah, facts. Yeah,
like
facts.
I haven't had that experience in a while. That game is sick.
Yeah,
so like and that's how I felt with The Last of Us. Like
exactly.
When I first played The Last of Us, I started it really early in the morning. And I beat the whole thing in a day. I couldn't stop. It was so good. And so Last of Us 2, like I was, bro, this game's gonna be sick. And then they pulled this shit. And it's like, is that gonna happen to Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah, man. Like, I really hope not.
It's really unfortunate because I don't think we live in an era anymore where like we see a game where like it looks cool. We have to be super skeptical until it comes out. We can't like, oh, we're gonna buy it and get it and play it. Yeah, that's how it was like in the 2000s with like. I remember like when Halo 2 got announced, I'm like, I know that's going to be good.
Right.
I know that's going to be good. Can't do that anymore.
Well, it's almost like if you know that a game is coming out from like it's a AAA game, like you have to be skeptical.
Yeah.
You know, which is it's just really sad. Like, I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to too much at this point. Like,
yeah, me either. You know, especially at the Cyberpunk. I was really excited for Cyberpunk.
Right. And that was a complete mess.
Yeah, like it's funny. I haven't even I had the game. I've only played the first mission. I'm kind of waiting till patches roll out.
Yeah,
but like, I'm probably gonna enjoy it. But I'm like, man, not even CD Projekt Red. I could really like be like, yo, they having a game. I can't even do that with them.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I mean, I'm looking forward to like King of Fighters 15. That's about it. And then there's like Sonic Colors Ultimate's coming out, but that's a re-release of a game that I just never played. So
yeah.
But you know,
I'm actually talking about a few games, but I guess because with like I want Microsoft to be on top again, just because I want Halo and all my favorite games to be on top again. And with Game Pass, I don't have to pay for any of these games.
Right?
So,
yeah,
like, I can just play them. So like that's pretty cool. But anything outside of that, I have to be super. I'm like I don't want to spend my money on this stuff. I don't know.
Well, speaking of Microsoft, we got this coming out of that studio, so maybe you might change your mind. This was the other thing that we wanted to chat about was Psychonauts 2 featuring an invincibility mode. And the invincibility mode is basically a toggle. It's an optional toggle that allows players to enjoy the game without worrying about dying at all. So I don't know about you. We got this article up here from CBR. I did some research and reading on this, and there's a couple of updates that I want to talk about, but I don't know about you, but back in my day, we called invincibility a cheat.
Yep.
That was a cheat code.
Yeah.
So this is coming off of the conversation that a bunch of people are having pretty readily about whether or not what it means to be a gamer, right? Like whether or not it's okay to play games on easy mode or whatever. And I actually don't know your thoughts on that, like in terms of like difficulty. Like, what do you think about people who go through games on the easiest difficulty?
Yeah, I don't really have the strongest opinion on this because I guess the reason why, I guess the first thing I have to ask, what was, in terms of difficulty, what was Psychonauts 1 like? So I didn't play the first game, so I can't tell you, but I do know somebody was telling me who did play the first game that if you put in cheats in the first game, there's a character that'll yell at you and berate you. And it used to be like that in games, right? Like, I think Battletoads does a similar thing. The original Battletoads, if you put in cheats and you get to the end, like you get made fun of by like the characters. Yeah, I remember even on the Xbox 360, any game you had to name with cheat codes, you can't get achievements anymore.
Right. And that was something that I wanted to talk about when it comes to this. But let's talk about the easy difficulty thing for a second, because a lot of people are conflating those two things. And I think that this is a dishonest conversation, because an easy mode is not the same thing as an invincibility mode.
It's not. Like, you have two different words for a reason.
Like, right. And people are saying that, oh, well, it's this whole conversation of, Well, if you beat the game on easy, you still beat the game. Yeah, sure. But if you beat the game with a cheat, no, it doesn't count anymore.
No.
And people are trying to say that it does. Now, the reason behind this, I think that, first of all, I think conflating those two things is dishonest.
Yeah.
You can't say that an invincibility is an easy mode. It's not, because in an easy mode, you still can die, you still can get damaged, you still can
There's
suffer
still consequences.
Exactly.
There's none here.
Right. And so I want to be able to separate those two things. I was talking to some people about this. I said, look, if we want to talk about games being easier, that's one thing. But if you want to talk about games having no risk, this is no risk, all reward. And it's really no risk, all reward, because this article from True Achievements notes that, sort of alluding to what you just said, the invincibility mode is not going to disable achievements at all. Well, some of them, which is bad, because
that's really bad.
Here's the thing. If you're going to have an invincibility mode, or you're going to have a cheat or whatever, and you just don't give the players rewards for playing that way, that's one thing. I'm okay with that. You were just saying on the Xbox 360, there were games like that. If you put in cheats,
every game was like that. Yeah.
If you put in cheats, you don't get achievements. That's totally fine, because you have to have some sort of a punishment, in my opinion, for trying to take the easy route. If you play a game like, for example, I'm playing through Resident Evil 2 like a bunch, because I'm trying to start speedrunning that game, the remake. And so if you play that game on hardcore difficulty, for example, you beat it, you get the achievements for standard and easy difficulty. Why? Because it's harder than the other ones. And so it's assumed that if you can beat it on that hard mode, you can beat it on the easy and the standard mode. If you beat it on easy mode, you only get the trophy for easy mode. You don't get the trophy for the hardcore mode.
Right. That's a good point too.
So if you're playing through a game on invincibility mode, it stands to reason that you wouldn't get the same rewards as a player who's playing it on a difficulty where there are punishments and risks to playing it. So this is the issue that I have with this. It's not that, like, okay, look, if you want to play through the game on invincibility mode, I don't care, whatever. That's just you sucking at games. That's fine. But if you want to have the same achievements as me, then yes, now it affects my experience, because you are getting the same rewards for taking no risk, and that's a problem.
It's like communism in video games. It's like
it's a participation trophy at that point.
It's see, here's the thing, right? So, like, you ever play this game called Gris? It's like our indie game. It's like 2D.
No, I've heard of it, but I haven't played it.
Yeah. So basically, the game is kind of like a no risk kind of game, right? Where, like, you kind of just go through. It's like a visual narrative. There's really any dialogue. It's really good, but there's not really like there is not much risk, but there is a challenge in solving a lot of the puzzles and figuring it out. But it's more of like an experience, more of like a game. And so, but the thing is, like, Psychonauts is not that,
right?
Like, Psychonauts is a totally, like, it's kind of like
platformer.
It's like a platformer where, like, you have to get through levels and solve challenges and puzzles risk involved. Gris is not like that. Gris is like it challenges you with, like, in not so much in with risk, but just like there's challenges to keep you entertained, but it's really the narrative, and that's the kind of game it is. It's more of like a visual narrative. It's kind of like an art in a sense. And the problem I have with this invincibility mode is it's throwing in it's trying to make a game something that's not this isn't. It's like if you were to throw an invincibility mode on Dark Souls, like, that's not the kind of game it is. It would ruin the whole part of the game. That's
what a lot of people are asking for, is stuff like this in Dark Souls now. And that's the thing, is it's like, this is going to, if this game succeeds, right, people are going to start asking for these kinds of options in other games. You can't put an easy mode in Dark Souls. That ruins the whole point of it, right?
Dark Souls becomes a mediocre game at that point.
Right, exactly. It's supposed to be a challenging thing, right? And to me, it's like, if you're not interested in playing these kinds of games the way that they're meant to be played, then maybe you want to play something else. You know, maybe you want to just watch a let's play at that point. You know, it doesn't really make any sense for somebody to demand that a thing change to suit, you know, their lower skill. To me, honestly, I'm just gonna say this. I don't think that this is for players. I think this is for journalists.
Yeah, probably.
I think that they want journalists to be able to play the game, get through it, and put out reviews.
Yeah.
And there have been journalists, we know, like that dude who couldn't get past the Cuphead tutorial, because there's a lot of game journalists out there, and people are gonna, if you want to, oh, this is Gamergate kind of, blah, blah, blah. Yes, sure, whatever. There are games journalists out there that have no interest in really no interest in video games. They got an English degree, and they need money and work. And so they go into this because it's an industry that's booming, and it's easy to get work if you're a decent writer. And this is just what it is. You know, that's how you get journalists that can't beat the top Cuphead.
That makes sense, because you notice they're all liberal. Like every single one of them is stupid progressive. Like every single one of them. So it's probably true that they're all come from like dumb public universities and just they're broke to do this. It makes total sense.
And so, I mean, I'm not going to say that's all of them. I'm sure that there are some of them that are good.
It's enough where the developers are like, we're going to make games around them. I mean,
right.
What is the problem?
Well, because games have become such a huge industry, and this is what happens when things blow up like this. Like back in the day when you had EGM, you had Game Informer, and you would get your games magazine monthly. Sometimes reviews would just be late, and that would just be it. You know what I mean? You would get a month once every month. Sometimes the game would come out that month and you wouldn't get a review. Why? Because the guy who's reviewing it has to beat the game before he reviews it. And that's just what it was. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay. Sometimes I would get the game before I would read the review, because that would just happen that way, because these people actually gave a crap. They cared. They actually played games. They went into this not because they wanted money, but because this was their passion. And they were interested in doing that. And they gave me genuinely good reviews because it was coming from somebody who knew what they were talking about when it came to games. And now there's just like, there was that girl who did that review of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and there's too much water.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
No, but you see her other reviews, the ones before are even worse. Like it's
right.
Like it's like, I don't even think she plays video games.
Right. That's what I'm saying. She's not interested in video games. She wanted a job. Yeah. And I know that even at companies, this isn't exclusive to game journalists. This is games industry. There are people in the game industry who work at game companies who don't care about video games, who don't play them. I worked with someone at a previous company who used to work at Sony and had a PlayStation 3 that she never played. Worked at Sony, worked for PlayStation at Sony. Never played games, doesn't care about games. I know several people like this, specifically at PlayStation, actually. And I know a couple of people who work at PlayStation who do play games, right? Who are really about it. I know a guy who's a composer for some of their stuff, and he's a gamer. But there are a lot more people who work, and this is what happens when companies just get bigger, because they need to hire people to do jobs. And I get it, but it's not great for the industry as a whole to just have people who are joining these collectives and these companies who have no interest in the hobby at all, because that's how you get stuff like this.
Yeah, I think also the people who agree with us, they tend to have a misunderstanding where they say things like developers don't really understand gamers. It's like no, they don't care.
Right, exactly.
They don't give a shit. Like they care about selling their product. And if they have to appeal to journalists, they will.
Right.
And I think we have to understand the difference. It's not that they don't understand. They understand. I mean, they know how to make games. They literally just don't care.
Right. Exactly.
So we have to understand that. And we also have to understand that we have to get better, like in general, like us on this side of the I guess political or just cultural spectrum. We have to recognize dishonest conversations, and we have to dismiss them.
Right.
Do not engage in them. When people say, "What's wrong with just an option?" Like, if you don't want to, just don't play it. It's not just it's starting as
right.
Like you have to understand the people who are pushing this forward. do not want to just leave it at that.
Right.
You have to understand where we've gone in the last 10 to 15 years in the video game industry. Like they want their games to be the way they want these people and the way they think games should run, and they don't give a shit about what you think.
Right.
They don't give a shit about the general gaming culture as a whole. They only care about their opinions and their ideas. That's it. So when we hear these things, we have to recognize this person's being dishonest. Like, fuck this guy.
Right.
And like we have to, like, it's no point in engaging. We like we're already in pretty much a culture war of games and all that, but we have to understand, like, one of the reasons we've been losing for so long is that we keep engaging in dishonest conversations. It's not.
No, that's true. That's true. That's
like,
very true.
Even, like, fuck that. Like,
but speaking of that, so this is exactly it. This the part of the dishonest conversation being had around this is not just, oh, this is what does it matter? It doesn't affect you. Da 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 da. We've already explained that part, but also the idea that this is about accessibility. It's not. There's no way it's about accessibility. People are saying, they give you 2 examples of this, and they'll say, well, what about disabled people? Now, you and I both play fighting games. We both play Street Fighter. You know who Brawly Legs is, right? That guy plays with his freaking mouth.
Bro.
If you can play high-level fighting games, Street Fighter, with your mouth, you cannot tell me that disabled people need something like this. First of all, what kind of disability involves someone needing to not have a challenge in the games that they're playing? Can you tell me that? You can't.
Also, now, who's asking for that?
Right, nobody.
The only people who are asking for that are like regular people, like these, like, progressives,
non-gamers.
None of the actual disabled people give a shit.
Right.
Like
because what it is with disabilities and accessibility. So people will bring up. We're gonna go back to The Last of Us 2 because this is part of the accessibility conversation. They bring up this page, right? So The Last of Us 2 has a lot of accessibility options, and I'm okay with all of this. So most of this. So you have options for like colorblind people, so things like this. You have hearing impaired people, alternative controls, etc. Right? Now, an invincibility mode is not an alternative control. Okay, it's not an accessibility option. It's not adding haptic feedback. It's not anything like that. But if you scroll all the way down here.
This is interesting. I didn't know they had this.
Yeah, and this is most of this stuff I'm fine with, right?
Yeah, I fuck with this.
I'm okay with that. I think that's actually really cool. Like a HUD colorblind mode.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All of that stuff is great. That's these are accessibility options.
Yeah.
Additional controllers for people who can't use their hands, etc. But then if you scroll down here, stuff like this, infinite breath while underwater, skipping puzzles, those are not accessibility options.
Yeah.
Those are ways to make the game easier. Now, people have conflated this thing. They say easy equals accessible. That's not the case. No. Easy is easy. Accessible is doing things like giving people who have are hard of hearing ways to know that enemies are around the corner, things like that.
Like you can say, like, accessible is like being able to use a PlayStation controller on your Xbox.
Right, exactly.
Not making it like for a fighting game. Right. It's not making the combos one button.
Right, exactly. That's making the combos one button. Like that's like having like a win button basically in a fighting game. Yeah. I think Corey Gaming did a video about that. Like how to make fighting games like more easy, right?
Yeah.
So if you're conflating those two things is part of the dishonest conversation that I'm talking about. And just because Naughty Dog decided to list this in their accessibility tab doesn't mean that that's what that is. That just means that that's what they're telling you. They're trying to sell it to you as, right? Now, I was talking to my lady about this earlier about the puzzle thing, for example. Now, if you're playing a game and you want to be able to skip puzzles so that you can enhance the playthrough, that like if you played through the game already and you just don't really feel like doing the puzzles again, to me, that's something that like you should be able to unlock when you finish the game.
I agree. I was
going to say
what
I mean?
Yeah.
Infinite breath. Okay, whatever. That doesn't mean that you're not dying. That's not invincibility.
Yeah.
So even putting those two things together isn't dishonest. I still think infinite breathing underwater is stupid. I don't know who actually needs that, right? But I think that it's insulting to disabled people to say that they need stuff like this.
Yeah, I think
personally.
Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah. I didn't ask for that.
Right. The other category of people that the people say that this is for is little kids. Now, if you think little kids are that stupid, then you're an asshole. Because
I think you're an asshole.
I've been playing games since I was 5 years old. There are certain games that I never beat because they were too hard. Comic Zone is one of them, right? Vector Man is one of them. That doesn't mean that I needed the game to make me invincible. That just means that I needed to get better. And a lot of these games, Comic Zone, I gave up after a while. I still haven't beaten that game because it's so difficult.
I think it also, because, you know, in the 2000, I call the 2000s the golden age of video games, because like there was a culture in like elementary schools and like groups of boys in schools talking about like games like Jack and Daxter and like, did you find this? Or like, that level. You remove that when you make the game easy as shit and everybody beats it.
Right.
Creative,
exactly.
You know, like it like, because video games are becoming more like, I definitely become a part of growing up with like your boys.
Right. Yeah,
like
totally.
As like a little boy. Right. So like, I think it's important to create challenging games that's accessible for kids, and accessibility could just be like, it's a challenging game that's rated E for everyone, so the mom doesn't go crazy about purchasing it for their kid. It's not making the game like suit like have an infinite breathing mode. Right. So like that's where you can point out. This is the thing. It's very easy to point out the difference. It's not hard to understand the difference. It's very simple. It's just like the barrier between you and playing the game is easier. When you actually get to the game, it's still the same game.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that video games are one way to teach a child how to overcome obstacles. You know what I'm saying? Like and it's a safe environment to practice being frustrated and getting through challenges. You remove that completely when you take away the ability to die in a game. And these are the things that, like, as somebody who loves video games, and you love video games, I'm sure you can agree on this. This is a way to teach mental resilience. We've talked about this
I agree.
with fighting games too. It's like, this is a way to teach mental resilience. It's not the only way to do it, obviously, but it's one good, safe way. It's a fun, safe way to do it. Right. And what you're doing, what this kind of stuff is going to do is it's going to create smooth brain. It's going to create kids who can't lose, who don't know how to lose, who don't know how to like to step up to a challenge, to learn something new. And you're also taking away the sense of accomplishment that you get from overcoming a challenge, which I think is even worse.
Yeah.
You know?
It's also the thing with like, because I still think one of the most teaching kind of games of all time is RuneScape. That was
I've never played that.
was addicted to that game as a kid. There's even there's a video I could send you, I could show you, where this guy pretty much breaks down where like Call of Duty is the title was like Call of Duty makes people stupid, but better games like RuneScape is the answer.
Yeah.
And he talks about like how like in the 2000s, a lot of, because when I played RuneScape, there's a lot of teenagers who played. Yeah. Because like that was like our MMO. It was either that or World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is like, if you could convince your mom to pay $15 a month, you played WoW.
Yeah, for sure.
RuneScape. So I played RuneScape, and that game, like you said, if like it teaches you, that game not only taught you about overcoming challenges, but like it puts you in an environment with other people where if you overcame challenges, you were rewarded with like social validation in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that game taught me about like economics.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Befriending people and like creating groups. Like I don't know if RuneScape I don't think it ever intended on that. They just wanted to make a good online game.
Yeah.
But I think like games like RuneScape are kind of the future. If in terms of like kids kind of interacting with each other and overcoming challenges, understanding, but also like from like in learning skills they can take it to the real world. Right. Like I learned a lot about social interaction through RuneScape. For sure. Right. Really in a I mean there's downsides too because you get addicted to it, obviously. Right. But it depends on, because the thing is RuneScape wasn't intended to be addicting. RuneScape was like, because you had like a free-to-play version, like a $5 a month version. The free-to-play version you could play for forever, and like to see games like Psychonauts 2 go this kind of route, it's like it's disappointing because there's like RuneScape, when you look at that game, it's like, yo, that's a start. Where can you go from there? And it hasn't really evolved much
Right.
from that kind of game. If anything, it's gone the opposite direction. So it's unfortunate to see this trend starting.
Yeah, I mean, and then people put it under the guise of, oh, well, accessibility and disabled people, and you must hate disabled people. Kind of, you know, they go down this rabbit hole. Yeah, and it's like, no. First of all, you're just accepting the story that this company is giving you without thinking about it. This is the same thing with like why I brought up the Last of Us 2 accessibility page, because people see this, they see that Infinite Breath is under accessibility, and they say, oh, this is an accessibility option without thinking about it. Yeah. Without thinking about what actually it does. And the
ramifications. Why do you believe that right away?
Right.
Like, look at what it's saying. That's not accessibility. They put that in the wrong word.
But we're at a point where if you're somebody who questions things, then automatically, like, you're a bad person. You're a target. You know what I'm saying? Look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to play Psychonauts 2. I never played the first game, whatever. I'm not worried about that game in particular. But what I am worried about is the trend, like you were mentioning, is how this is going to turn out and kind of how this could potentially spiral into other games. And just kind of, it really, to me, it cheapens the experience. It's going to rob a bunch of, even if your concern is kids, it's going to rob those kids of an actual meaningful experience. Like, you don't think a little kid is going to toggle on invincibility mode if they know that it's a thing, right? Kids want the easiest way out a lot of the time. Our job as adults who are creating these things and supposed to be guiding these children is to show them that how rewarding it can be to overcome a challenge, not to bulldoze. We know for a fact that when this comes to, like, if it comes to raising kids, and they call it bulldozer parenting, where they like get all the obstacles out of a child's way, that actually results in negative consequences, because those people are not able, as they grow older, to deal with challenges in their own life, and so they're going to constantly be running to an authority figure to try to move things out of the way for them, you know. And this is just a small example of that. And I think it's a cultural issue in general, not just with games, but I would really like to stay out of games.
Yeah.
You know,
it's also the thing with this too is, because with these kind of things, you always hear the most dishonest thing, where it's just like, it's a private company. Like, what do you those for, like, again, guys, when you hear these arguments, do not engage under the premise. You have to call it out and say, no, you're being dishonest. If we're gonna have a conversation,
absolutely,
I just call it out. If they don't want to do it, I just stop talking. I don't give a fuck anymore.
Because
I know it's going, and I'm not going to win because the premise is wrong.
Yeah,
I know it's
exactly.
Wrong. I'm not going to quit. Like, I know it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to tell you it's wrong. If you don't want to accept, then I'm not going to talk to you, because
absolutely
the premise is that, like, these people believe companies should do whatever they want. They don't actually believe that.
Right.
Because, you know, like, these are the same people who are just, like, again, if a certain if a certain restaurant is like, I'm not going to serve gay people, they'll lose their fucking mind.
Yeah,
like,
right. Exactly.
They're not being dishonest, or they're not being honest. Like we have to work more in reality, right? And the reality is, your kids are going to play games. People are going to play games, and so we have to talk about what developers are trying to push towards gamers, because your kids are going to play games. Like, everyone's going to play games at some point. And if you don't let them play games, they're probably going to hate you in 10, 20 years when they get older. You got to let them play games. And so, you know, you got to call this shit out. Like,
man,
it's better that, I know, like I said, we got to work with reality. The reality is, people are going to play games, and it's best when games challenge people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the point. People will bring up that this is another dishonest point. People will bring up things like, well, what about games like Journey, where it's just kind of like going through like okay, well, I said to somebody, we're talking about this, I said, there's actually an ongoing debate as to whether or not Journey is a game even at all. Because if there is no challenge, and there's no, like, I mean, yes, that maybe there's rules, there's confines and stuff, but if there's no like lose or win state, is that a game?
I would say it's like a playable, it's like an interactive experience.
Actually, exactly.
The game I mentioned, Gris, is just like Journey.
Right.
I actually compare it all the time. And like, the thing is too, is that a lot of people get because like I just like a quick off thing, I'll get right back to it. I just bought like a new camera setup, and in like the photography community, people get really sensitive about like people criticizing certain cameras. It's very strange, because they get really emotionally attached to a brand. It's a fucking brand. It's really well, like,
brand doesn't care about you.
It's very strange. I don't know why people do that. And so I see that kind of with like games too. So it's like, you know, Like, if someone was trying to, like, I love Gris. I think it's a great game. If someone was like, Gris ain't a real game, it's just kind of easy mode, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, it's it's a visual narrative. It's a brand. It's a company. I don't have an emotional attachment to a brand and defend them to the death. I'm not getting paid. So if someone wants to say it ain't really a game, or Journey's not a game, I mean, like, that's fine. I mean, I'm able to criticize a brand. It's a company.
Well, these people will say things like, well, the developers made a game. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing is,
it's a product.
It's there is a understandable stance that somebody could take to say that it's not a game, actually. And that's fine. What I say is, like, every piece of interactive software is not a game. Like, what are you going to call QuickBooks a fucking game? That doesn't make any sense. It's interactive software. It's not a game, though. So just because something uses a controller is on a game platform doesn't necessarily mean a game. I think we call it a game because it's the easiest way to understand what it is and how people interact with that medium. But is it actually a game? Maybe not. You know what I'm saying?
I think a simple solution is to point, like, this is where genres come in. Like, I think visual narrative experience. I think that's a genre.
Right.
There's a lot of games like that.
Totally. Yeah.
What's the problem with that? Like, I don't.
Right. I agree with that. Right. I agree. Oh, well, because there's even things like Phoenix Wright. Okay. There's point and click kind of thing. I guess it is more of a game because there is a lose state.
Yeah.
But games like, okay, let me think. Psychonauts has a game, and it's basically a visual novel. Is that a game? I would argue no, it's not a game.
Like the Walking Dead games too, like Telltale games.
So those have lose states, though. There's things that you can do bad and stop and end the game and have to start over from the beginning of the scenario.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So I did the whole Batman one. Honestly, I hate those games because it's just boring to me.
Yeah, I feel that.
But I did play through the whole Batman one because I needed to understand what they were like. But that's it's like point and click. Phoenix Wright is sort of like that too, where it's like there's sections where there's point and click, but like a game like Psychopath Mandatory Happiness is definitely not a game because it's literally just reading text. You know
what's Doki Doki Literature Club?
Right, it's like that.
That's a good example. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Is that a game? I would say
like no. That game is not Psychonauts 2. It's a total different thing.
Right.
You know?
And that's okay if you enjoy them. That's fine. I'm not saying that people can't enjoy them. What I'm saying is, as I'm just asking the question, is that a game? People do get really upset when you even ask that.
It's like I said, they get really emotionally tied.
It's
to
like
things that like who develops Psychonauts? I actually forgot.
Double Fine Studios.
Yeah, Double Fine, like
Tim Schafer.
Like you're the consumer to them.
Right.
You're not like your family member. Like I don't understand what is this attachment.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
it's a company. Exactly. They sell a product. You pay for the product.
Right, exactly.
So you don't have to get emotionally tied. It's very strange.
Right, and people should be allowed to criticize it. It's like if you're someone who doesn't like this, it's like, you know, you get attacked.
Yeah, you know yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I actually know somebody who used to work at Double Fine Studios. I won't mention them by name, but that person agrees with me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like it's not like there aren't legitimate reasons to disagree with these kinds of things. Like, especially somebody who's like our age. You know what I mean? We're obviously not gonna like this because we grew up with hard games. You know what I mean? And now to us, it's like, these damn kids, they're making everything easier. That's kind of like what we are now. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much.
So it's like, it's understandable. It's like, if you're someone who's defending this, like you're probably under 20 years old and you probably never played anything on the Nintendo. Try beating Battletoads and get back to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Without save states. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's you know what, this is really prevalent too. We talked about this last week, the Final Fantasy community and the WoW community.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of attachments to their games. I'm like, dude, it's Blizzard and it's Square Enix.
Yeah,
They're fucking companies.
They don't care about you.
Both games, you should want every MMO to do very well.
Right.
Every MMO does very well, then you benefit.
Right.
Like, I don't understand, like, And you know what's interesting? There's two kind of driving forces behind the content in both games. Like Asmongold for a while, now kind of Final Fantasy now, and this girl Zeppelin for Final Fantasy, and they're both pretty much on the same page. So it's really nice to see that they both are putting this message forward. Like, why are you guys fighting over which game? It's a brand. You're the consumer. You should want both to be good.
Right? Like, exactly.
About it, like you will benefit. Like it's really weird.
Especially
in the MMO space, because a game has to have players, and this is very specific to MMOs. In order for the MMO to be successful and to do well, people to want to play it, it has to have an active player base.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't matter what else. That comes first before anything.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, who should care about whether or not the other company is doing well or not is the companies. Yeah. They're the ones who should be bickering. The fans, no, you guys are benefiting because they're vying for your money and your time. You're the one who gets to decide who gets the money. So
it's like for me, right? Like I'm always gonna be like an Xbox fan because I love Halo. I love all their IPs, but like the fact that Sony's killing it, like the fact that Sony has kind of dominated Microsoft for like 5 years is like I think a good reason why Game Pass is a thing now.
Right.
So now
yeah.
PlayStation has
and it benefits you.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've always been like a Sony guy. I got an Xbox, but I got an Xbox One. I will admit, Game Pass is like the best deal in gaming. I think
it's crazy.
It's fantastic,
and like the like Microsoft going out of the way to buy out developers like Bethesda and whatnot to get more games on Game Pass. Like Sony now has to compete,
right?
And it's like this is good because now when they compete, that means you're gonna have a crazy amount of games. Like imagine Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation, like just like as a part of like your.
50... It was on PlayStation Plus already.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
I didn't even know that's crazy.
Yeah, dude. Before we get off, because we're talking about Microsoft, I will say, interesting thing about Game Pass, they put MLB The Show on Xbox on Game Pass day one. Yeah. I got that and I was playing it. Crazy to see
that is
crazy. PlayStation logo on a game that I'm playing. And you're exactly right. Sony has to compete. And how did they compete? How they put one of their biggest franchises on Xbox because Xbox, they were like
we're gonna put Halo day one game.
Right.
Back.
Well, they know that sports fans love Xbox. Yeah. Sports games fans love Xbox. So who does that benefit? It benefits the sports fans and it benefits Sony because now their product is getting out there and they're getting a cut of those downloads. You know what I'm saying? Insane.
And then like, let's say like, they're like, oh, let's do crossplay for the game. Now everyone can play together.
Right.
That's what we talk about when we say accessibility.
Right.
But you only really get that when companies give a shit about like you got to compete, man.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Because it's funny you mentioned that because my dad has always played PlayStation, but we used to play NFL Fever back in the day.
Yeah.
OG Xbox, and he switched to PlayStation because he loves MLB The Show.
Yeah, the show.
And I told him like that's on Xbox. He's like, what are you talking? I got him a PS5 because I restocked like at 3 a.m. one night.
Oh, nice.
So I copped one at retail, so I give it to my dad. And, I told him that I was like, you can play it on Xbox now, and he couldn't believe it. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like he likes PlayStation like now, but like it's just crazy because he's always played PlayStation because he wanted to play the show.
Yeah.
The Xbox never really had. I think they had like
they had All-Star Baseball, like the EA ones.
Yeah. And those were
or like MVP baseball or something.
Yeah, I've played those and I play the show. I'm like the show. There's nothing.
The show is amazing. It's the best baseball game out there. Well, that's a good note to end on. I think the console wars might be coming to a close at some point. Maybe we'll wrap that and do the Steam Deck next time. That shit is crazy. Oh yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to get into that. Let them know where they can find you.
Guys, you can follow me on YouTube and Twitch at Ceelows for both. I'm getting into the IRL space, getting into more Final Fantasy stuff. It's going to be some good stuff coming.
All right. And you can find me at Twitch at twitch.tv/MisterBehavior, MrBehavior, youtube.com/MisterBehavior. That's all spelled out for YouTube, and then minds.com at MisterBehavior. And I'm just one note. I know last week we did not end up doing Duality. That's because guess what? The tournament got canceled. So next time, you motherfuckers need to sign up for Street Fighter V because it looks like Guilty Gear is just destroying that game at this point.
It really is though. Like the viewership, bro. Like everyone's just playing Guilty Gear.
It's wild.
I didn't expect that.
Me neither.
And I'm glad it's happening.
Yeah, right.
Next mode has been shit for a long time, and
absolutely.
I hope the next few games they start picking it up.
We'll see what happens with Street Fighter 6.
Honestly, think they will. We'll see.
All right. Well, that was it. Thanks for tuning in to the Anti-Oki Podcast. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
not a warrior, you're just a beginner. Get up, wimp, and bask in the glory of a winner. My strength is much greater than yours. I'm a street fighting legend, the creator of wars. No use debating the score, I've waited patiently for someone to pound through the ground. I'll smash your face in the floor. You've lost, dog, I'm the boss, you can't compare with my powers. I play this game for the fame, they claim the hundreds of hours.
Listen, it's a tournament edition.